What's up, everybody? Hope you guys had a good week. Hopefully everybody can hear me and see me. It's telling me I have some errors. I'm going to look here real quick just to see if you guys can see me. Can you guys hear and see me okay? What's up, Brian? I had Simon up here to hang out with me, and I don't know, he already left. So anyway, today we're going to talk about, or tonight, we're going to talk about the Godzilla engine. I'm also going to update you guys a little bit on the new swap options that we have. As far as computers, OBR control systems is something that I'm getting behind. I'm really excited about that. You know, it's a work in progress, and I'll explain to you guys a little bit more about why we're going that route, why I think it's the way to go long term, instead of jumping into something maybe that's already there. But we'll go over that in just a little bit. Let's see who all is in here. S550 Alex, what's up? Eric's been in here a little bit. Brian, Mike Ramirez, what's up? Jeff, how you doing? Northern Rider, TLW 1022, how you guys doing? Terry Day, what's up? Terry's car's at our shop, or was. I don't think it went home yet. Mr. GT500, Mark. What's up, Ben? Ben's performance pack. I think his is a 17 GT. We just got done doing a Whipple on. It did awesome. We'll be doing a lot of videos on that. Jess, what's up? Simon, I don't know where he went. I got the chair set up for him and everything. It's not very comfortable, though. He'll come back. I'll get him. Let's see. Who else is in here? Ken Barrett, Walter. What's up, guys? All right. Very cool. Anyway, I think the first thing we're going to do, I wanted to, you know, I already talked a lot about this, but I'm excited about it, and we've got some new updates. I wanted to show you guys the some updates to the billet lid. Let's see here. That's it the last time you saw it as far as the exterior, the finish on it after the first pass. There's like a full screen version of it, and then Jeff just recently got it all done. Now, this is just the very first prototype. This isn't even really going to be exactly how it's going to look, exactly how it's finished. Initially, we had planned on just taking a stock supercharger lid and cutting it and welding it. So this is 1,000 times better than that, of course. And we really have, real good control over the inside of it, which is really key in what we're trying to do. So let's look at another couple pictures here. There it is on the supercharger itself. Pretty cool setup there. Let me get rid of me. You don't need to see me. What else we got here? Jeff sent me a couple pictures. These are just cell phone pictures, of course. We're not trying to behind the scenes stuff here on the live feed. That gives you a little bit of an idea of how much taller this is, but we do have a picture of it right next to the other one. Revit Racing, Dallas, Texas, what's up? Peter Sheen, Whipple 3.8. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. We'll hopefully be getting one of the first 3.8s for Carlos Ferrer's car, the one that went 840 at 166 last week. Obviously, we hope to go a lot quicker than that on the 3.0 liter, but once we're done, then we're going to go to the 3.8. So hopefully we'll have one of the first ones. I believe this is showing the weight. That lid right there is 11 pounds. And I don't know if I have the stock one in here. I think it was like 9 and change. Let's see. Let me turn that off. I don't know if you guys can hear that going off. Anyway, this is a really cool picture, and I'm not sure if I've shown this one yet. So let's look at this closer. This is showing you the inside profile of it. of the two intakes. So obviously the stock one, or the billet one, is much taller, but in the center here we have this V that's really going to help direct the airflow from the intercooler core into the cylinders. Now the stock one does have a similar type of divider here, as you can see on the left, but there's not a whole lot of clearance between the intercooler and the lid, so that V isn't very deep. Walter, it's in this case, it's not so much the volume, it would be the let me show you the other pictures, and then I'll go over that real quick for guys that didn't see last week. But it has to do with the flow outside of the flow path outside of the intercooler. We're helping to make that part larger. There's a real tight on the top of this, goes on top of the intercooler, and the intercooler flows up, and then you have this lid, and the air has to make a really sharp turn, and it's fine. I mean, we have no problem pulling high RPM, well over 1,000, but it's still very tight. So we're hoping that's going to help, and a little bit more volume too. They help, but it's mostly about the flow, the path. What's up, Glenn from New Zealand? I don't know why they just blocked that comment. I had to let it through. Anyway, let's keep looking at some of these pictures. There's another really good picture. That shows you the stock lid on the right with the new lid on the left. That, you know, it shows you how much taller it is. I believe it's a little bit more than a ½ inch taller. Maybe 5/8. Jeff would know. I'm not sure if he's in here or not. Hey, Barry, what's up? Good to hear from you. There's another view of the lids from the side, so you can see the stock lid in the foreground and the billet lid in the background. So it's taller, but not crazy tall. It will fit under the brace. Let's see what else we got here. And check that out. Jeff just sent me that today. That's pretty cool. Since this is just a test piece, he went ahead and threw our logos on there and the American flag. And that's it on that. Walter, I'm going to go ahead and show you real quick. I think. Crap. Oh, yeah, here it is. If you're still here, Walter, this is to give you an idea of the stock lid versus the billet lid. The blue is the intercooler, so the air flows up through the it'd be helpful if I switched to that screen, didn't I? No, I did. Hold on, sorry. The air flows up through the blue core from the bottom, and then stock, it would hit the yellow wall basically and direct itself to the left or to the right, and then back down into the intake runner. Now the green is the new the inside profile of the new hat, and the air's just got a lot more. There's just not going to be any restriction there. If there is a restriction on the stock lid, we don't know that for sure, but at some point you're going to be flowing more air than that gap can really flow. So we're just guessing. It's a lot easier just to guess on stuff like this. For people that are wondering, I mean, there's probably, Ford may have this stuff modeled properly for you know, so they could figure that stuff out easily, but it'd take you so much time to probably make an accurate airflow model. And a lot of times on these types of product development setups, you're just you know, you're just kind of guessing a little bit and testing and trying. Same thing with, you know, porting heads. You know, there's probably some math that goes into it, but a lot of it is you know, just trying different things and see what works. So anyway, Serpent Stangs, what's up? We're tuning in your GT500 now. Got all the GT500 guys coming on over to Palm Beach Dyno. Appreciate that. Anyway, let's see. The big thing I wanted to talk about today is the Godzilla stuff. This is big news. It's not being talked about as much as I think it's going to be talked about. I think we're a little bit ahead of the curve. It's a little too early for. the average person to be talking about it, but you're not the average person if you're here on this live feed, I guess. Anyway, so, you know, of course, we've got the Godzilla in the trucks, and we're doing great, but, you know, there's not going to be too many people heavily modifying their trucks to begin with. I do plan to put a Whipple on mine. I hope to be getting mine soon. I think I'm getting one of the first ones, or the first one that goes in a truck. As you guys have seen, Brian Wolf got his for his race engine, and that's, you know, big news. I want to talk about that a little bit. Rudy 8s in a GT500. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. That anything's possible, and, you know, I think I could do it with my car, but my car's a little light, so we'll go over what it's gonna take to run 8s, you know, without going crazy, you know, taking the whole car apart. But anyway, back to the Godzilla. You know, so we've got the stock trucks and stock tuning and Whipples on trucks and maybe a camshaft, and hopefully we're going to have some intake, aftermarket intake support. Brian is using a billet intake manifold on his, which is performing spectacularly, but you know, that's a little bit pricey for the average guy. So, you know, I've talked to Dan at SPE. He's considering working on an intake. You know, obviously if it's a Whipple, you don't need that, but NA or any kind of ProCharger, Vortec, turbo, I would think over the stock intake there's some gains to be had there. Carlos Vera, what's up? It's the King, 10R80 King. Maybe we should put turbos on yours next, just so you have every single record possible with the 10R80. Anyway, so on the Godzilla, beyond the stock trucks, I think the real big modification crowd is going to be in the swap market, because obviously people that buy a brand new truck aren't necessarily looking to mod, but if you're swapping the engine, you're a performance person more than likely. So there's a very good chance that, you know, you're going to want to make some power. So, you know, what is that going to take? How are you going to get it into the vehicle? What modifications are going to be popular? You know, swap vehicles, there's all types of different swap vehicles. You have people that have 100% working vehicle and they want to swap this in as a replacement engine and maybe add performance, but at that point, you know, whether it's a daily driver or not, they want it to work 100% everything, period. Then you're going to have a lot of people that are doing these in hot rod type swaps, which I think it's going to be popular for, especially now that we've got the big cubic inch. You know, and in those cases, some of those guys may want power. Some of them may not care too much about power, you know, but in things like running the gauges in the car may or may not be important. And then you're going to have an all-out race setup like what Brian's doing. You know, and a lot of people are looking at Brian's setup and like, oh, man, I wish somebody would do something a little bit more realistic. Well, that's coming. You know, what Brian's doing is actually going to help everything. Everything kind of rolls downhill. So whatever we see on his setup is going to benefit us everywhere. Like the power that he just recently put down, naturally aspirated. Let's go ahead and bring that up real quick. Let's see, where is that? I'll let you guys mostly look at this stuff on YouTube yourself, because that's why it's there. Evan does a great job. He's been covering most of Brian Wolf's stuff. And you guys Brian does a lot of sharing on Facebook too, and it does most of it in public, as I do myself. So if you're wanting to find out a lot about the 7.3 stuff, places to follow would be me personally on Facebook. You're more than welcome to friend request me, but I think I'm full of friends, but you can follow me. Brian Wolf posts everything publicly, and Evan, I believe, posts some of his stuff on Facebook, but then his YouTube channel, which you see right here, is where a lot of it is. Revin Evan. So here, let's listen to a dyno pull. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with this project, this is Brian Wolf, who's doing, you know, one of the first race motors. Again, if you're not familiar with the project, I really encourage you to go to Evan's channel and just work your way back, you know, start you can just look at all his videos and start in the beginning of the 7.3 stuff and work your way through it, because they go through the engine and the size of the, everything from the camshaft bearings to the head setup to, Brian's showing you how he basically set the table for us while he was at Ford with an engine that's really going to be capable, I think, a lot more capable than people are ready to really think about. I'm an overhead cam guy, and I'll always be a modular guy, but this is going to be something really cool to play with. I'm very excited about it. You want to see some swapped into Chevys? Yeah, I'm sure you will. Especially, we had to hear about the LS swap for so long that, it'd be nice to give it back to them a little bit. That's one thing you didn't see a lot. Coyote swaps are popular, but they're not popular as much into other bodies like the LS swap for sure. So this is going to be nice. Anyway, let's listen to this real quick.
All right, guys, Rev and Evan, I'm back up here in Michigan with my man Brian Wolf. As you can see, his awesome dyno room is ready to go. Sitting on the dyno, the 7.3 Godzilla that we've been all waiting to see run. Now, we ran a stock motor before, so we saw that in a previous video. This motor is actually a built motor, but it's not built.
I'm going to go ahead and fast forward to the dyno pool.
$790.
All right, look at that dyno graph, guys. I mean, that's pretty damn awesome. Now, to consider, everybody looks up there and sees it's 12.5 to 1 motor, and they think this is a naturally aspirated setup, but it's really not. Sorry, I was just reading the comments. I'll get to you guys in just a second on the comments. But it's really not. This is a blower motor. This is set up for a Whipple. Obviously 12.5 to 1 is decent amount of compression, but the camshaft events are optimized for a blower, not necessarily naturally aspirated. But look at that curve. I didn't really talk to Brian too much about RPM limitations on this setup. I suspect that he can spin it a little higher. It certainly wants to make power a little bit higher. And now these are stock heads now, stock castings. They've been gone through heavily by Visner. It's got special rocker arms in it and all that. But you can, like I said, go to Evan's channel and look this all up. But now, we're talking almost 800 horsepower. Maybe if you rev it out, it makes 800 horsepower NA. Now, you make this optimized for NA. You don't run it on C16. That's definitely not the most optimal fuel for this, for making big power, NA. And, 900's in range. So, we'll start there. I think that's what we're going to do with our Palm Beach Dyno Godzilla swap setup. We're going to do NA stock engine and maximize it as best we can, and then do a built setup and shoot for that 900 mark and go real crazy. Now, our setup's going to be a stick shift car. So I want to talk about, what it's going to take to get these in different vehicles. Yes, bus layer. Brian Wolf was the head of Ford Racing, and he was also even higher up Ford executive. He went higher up after Ford Racing. He was the head of global engine development for Ford, I believe, and also for North America. And he was definitely a key person in bringing the 7.3 to us all while he was at Ford. So very important to follow him on the 7.3 stuff, because it's not just by chance that he's doing it. He had a lot to do with the engine being produced, and he wants to continue on with it. Serpent Stangs, GT500, yeah. The problem with the skinny on a vehicle like that is it's so heavy in the front. I don't love it. You can go with a skinnier tire. I put an 8.5-inch wheel on mine for my drag setup, but I'm not really a big fan of putting a skinny tire if you're gonna keep the factory brakes. I don't like the way it looks either. So with the 8.5 on mine, it's livable. 8.5 inch wheel. I think I run like a 255 up front. That's good enough for me. Yeah, the skinnies, but you're giving up so much with the brakes. That's why I decided to do the carbon ceramic brakes, but that was just a little too much money. Anyway, let's talk about the Godzilla and getting it into the vehicle. So obviously, you know, we've been doing swaps for a long time. This is nothing new. The Coyote swap is a fairly complicated swap, and that's why it's so popular to use the factory computer, the control pack. Problem with the factory control pack type stuff like that, especially on the Coyote, and probably will be the same issue with the Godzilla, is they're mass air based. So, you know, the mass air meter meters the amount of air coming into the engine, and it's really critical, not only the size of the tube, but also the shape of the tube and where the curves are and how close the meter is to the filter, and all these things really factor into how well the vehicle is going to run. And it's very easy to mess up a Coyote swap by, you know, not handling that correctly. And a lot of the times it's handled correctly. Obviously, there's lots of successful Coyote swap cars, but if we're spending any amount of time messing with anything, that's what we're messing with, especially naturally aspirated. So, you know, what's the best way to handle that? Well, you know, for a pure swap, something that's speed density is definitely the way to do it, in my opinion. For those of you that are unaware what that is, speed density uses a pressure sensor in the manifold, a MAP sensor, to model the airflow going through the engine. So that way you don't need a mass air meter. Some vehicles use only a mass air meter. Some use only a MAP sensor. Some use both, and they basically compare versus each other. Ford has a mass air meter on a Mustang GT and no MAP sensor, but it does model what it thinks the map should be, and it compares those and uses it for certain things. But on a GT500 or an EcoBoost, those are speed density and map based because, well, on an EcoBoost, it's because there's no good place to put a mass air sensor on a turbo vehicle like that. I mean, you could put it before the turbo, but pretty much ever since they went EcoBoost, they got rid of the mass air sensor, and then that carried over to the GT500, which I believe 2015 Mustang GT was supposed to be speed density, but I believe Ford Racing was able to convince Ford not to do that for the aftermarket because speed density can be very difficult to tune with a stock computer. Now, there's differences there. A stock computer speed density like a GT500 or an EcoBoost is very difficult to tune, and you know, that's why you don't see everybody doing it, I guess. Especially on an EcoBoost, it's a little different because you don't have to mess with that as much, but on a Mustang where you may be changing a lot of different things that can really affect the fuel model, it gets challenging. That is not what we're talking about when we're talking about an aftermarket standalone system. So that's really where this conversation's headed. The factory computer has gotten us a long way, but there's some interesting limitations to the factory computer that my choice in going forward may solve. We don't know yet. So what am I talking about? Well, fully integrated swaps. So now let's see, you take a Coyote swap and you take the factory PCM and you put that into your 2005 Mustang. Can you get the gauges to work? Yes, you can. I know people that have done it, but it's not plug and play. It's not super easy. And, you know, I know a few people that have done it, you know, and that's possible on any kind of application with any kind of computer. You can usually get things to work if you really try hard enough, but, you know, there's a lot of time involved, right? Not everybody wants to spend like, you know, months researching this stuff and figuring out how to, you know, implement this stuff. They just want a plug and play option. So that's what I'm after. I'm after, you know, like a good example, except it's very expensive, is, you know, you take like a GTR and you put like a T1 race development package on it, you know, super badass, crazy power. They put a Motec in it, but their setup is set up to still run the gauges and everything in the car, I believe. And now they even have, I think, a dash that they offer with it. But anyway, it fully integrates, and other systems are like that. Well, that's not very common in the swap market. You know, it could be common when you're swapping a computer into that known car, but when you're taking a whole entire engine, the computer package and all that, and swapping it in, you know, a lot of the times you're out of luck with the gauges. Now, if you're swapping it into a newer Ford, depending on what the swap is, you can get away with certain things, right? So like a 7.3, it has variable cam timing, but it's just the single cam. It does have a unique throttle body, not unique to the Godzilla, but a newer throttle body that's not going to work with older electronics, say like an '05 Mustang. It has a variable oil pump, that needs controlled. It doesn't need controlled, but it's there, and it'd be nice to control it. All things like that. So what my idea is this OBR control systems. They come from a much different world than where most of our standalone systems originate from. This is more of a motorsports type company where they've dealt with a little bit more race cars, but then also on the OEM side, their systems are used to control stuff on engine dynos. Like Brian Wolf uses it. He won't be using it in his car, but he does use it on his engine dyno. Ford uses it on their engine dyno. OBR, let's look at OBR real quick. So this is OBR here, and this is the computer we're using. Now, before anybody looks at the price here and gets excited, that is and I know you can get stuff cheaper. This is not what we're suggesting that you buy. This is what I have to properly test out everything with OBR to bring you a cheaper version of this. This has way more than you need. It can run 16 cylinders, dual stage fuel injection, dual drive-by-wire. I mean, you can do cool stuff with this. And if you guys want to buy this to put it on some cool project that needs all this stuff, we're going to do a lot with OBR, but specifically for the swap market, this is a little much. It has the dual closed loop lambda control, dual boost control, traction control, paddle shift control, variable cam control, direct injection. I mean, it does all kinds of really, really cool stuff. Hot swappable engine maps. These are all things that you can't do with a stock computer. Now, you know, obviously you guys know me for stock computer tuning, and I love stock computer tuning, and I'll always continue to do stock computer tuning. But in this case, you know, OBR may bridge the gap to the things that I like about stock computers, but this removes those limitations, I guess I could say. You have a lot of the really good hardware that actually is in stock computers, but fully customizable. They already have a lot of things in here that we would want to use, things like drag racing features, electronic throttle body offset, spark advancer, retard, boost target offset. I mean, you can just go on and on about what this thing can do, but at the end of the day, it's I guess what I'm getting at is a lot of aftermarket standalones. I've noticed a lot of unreliable hardware. So I think this hardware is going to be a little bit more reliable. And, you know, these guys have been doing this for 30 years. It's just they don't really operate in our world, but that's what we're trying to change. Let me, you know, so anyway, the real important thing that I was getting at was that expandability, you know. Now, I'm not going to make any promises. I'm not going to make any timelines because this is a new deal and we're just kind of seeing where it's going. And it's really going to depend on how behind it you guys get. But all the abilities are there to add support, CAN support. So you can put this in a vehicle and it'll be plug and play. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to really quickly mention. Where did I put it? Hold on. So right here, this is the computer that I just received from them, and this harness, they're going to offer a plug-and-play harness, okay? This isn't a great picture. I really meant to bring it home with me to show it to you in person, like right here on camera, but I forgot. I was running really behind today, like I always am. But anyway, it's all, professionally built, and this is a one-off harness. So, it's only going to get nicer. Everything's labeled, has all OEM style connectors. It will work with most of your factory sensors, except the widebands. I don't know if that's going to change, but at first you need to change the sensors to NTK, which is what they use on this. Mustang Lifestyle 7.3 swap. Yep. Just think what that thing's going to sound like with a big cam. El Chapo times 2. Mike, yeah, kinda. The OBR ECU, he said, is Motec level. Not yet. As far as the power is there, I suppose, but we have to kind of wrap it up into a usable package. Let me show you a little bit about a little bit of the software here. Hold on a second. So let's see. So this is the software right here. Now, it's not fancy as far as all, a bunch of colors and all that kind of stuff. It's very, engineering folk type of tool. It's not meant for the end user so much. Now, that's the other thing is we're going to offer this stuff as a plug and play option. It's going to come tuned, ready to rock. It's going to have some level of auto tune for the fueling and all that. And for a stock engine, we don't really expect a whole lot of tuning being needed. So you're not going to need to learn this stuff to use this stuff. That's what we're for, right? We do remote tuning. People don't know how to tune the stock computer. We do that. People who don't necessarily know how to do this, we'll do that. But in this case, unlike the stock computer world, is you're going to be able to tune this yourself also. We'll go over this in just a second. Let me answer a couple questions here. Hellhorse, what do you think about OBR versus Terminator X for OBD1 style vehicles like Foxes? Basically something that doesn't need CAN. Holly's a good stuff. Here's the advantages of Holly. Holly is widely accepted. So if you're at the track and you don't know how to fix your car, you might be able to find somebody that does because they use Holly. If you need a spare Holly box, you might be able to find one. But there's many things, that I don't love about Holly, and I don't know if things have changed, but, I don't do this stuff constantly. But every time I've ever tried to get any kind of technical support from Holly, I haven't been able to. So that's going to be a real key part of this particular project is the support. The other thing about Holly, and again, I don't know if things have changed, but early on, the hardware wasn't the most reliable, and, I can only imagine where that gets made. So OBR goes along with everything else that I've said in the past, if you followed me for any amount of time, is I'd much rather deal with the guy, right? The guy who brought the product to market, right? OBR stands for, I'm not going to mess up his name, even though my grandfather was named the same name. I believe he says it differently. Ole. I don't even know how to say his last name. It's OLE Buhl, right? I assume OBR Racing, he's the OB in OBR Racing. That's why I like dealing with these people. And he's been doing it 30 years. So it's just, I can work with somebody like this at a different level. I don't like to just sell things, right? That's great. Everybody likes to make money. I love to make money. I like money. Sorry, how to do that. If you're a fan of the movie Idiocracy, you'll get that. If not, then I sound like an idiot. So anyway, so I feel like I can bring a really great product with these guys. Like, I get very excited about this sort of stuff when I have something new. It's the same reason I'm loving dealing with Jeff and Brett over at Jokers and Late Model and the blower porting and the lids and the throttle bodies. Like, I like to make stuff and new stuff and figure out better ways to do things. And SPE has been huge. I met Dan just randomly contacted me about GT500 stuff, and we struck up a friendship. And they're his products, but I like to throw ideas at him, and sometimes he uses them. And it's the same thing with this. I talked to these guys today, and I'm just very excited about where this can go and bring something new to the table. So that's really my answer versus something like Terminator X. It's potential. That's why I like it. Yeah, Idiocracy is definitely happening. I need to watch it again. It's been a while, but that's too much. Garage Junkie, have you seen the FI inner chiller for the GT500 yet? Yes, I've seen those. I know I've heard that's much better. I have friends, I believe that's the Australian version, and I have friends in Australia that recommended them, but overall, not convinced. Anyway, we were going to go over the software here. Sorry, guys. So, real quick, it's a tree type system. So, this is a Godzilla file, actually. So, as you open up all these things, this would be like a table. This is probably not used. This is target boost pressure, which we're not using, and this is in millibar, I would assume. Yeah. So anyway, but it does have nice graphing you can do, and all that on this stuff. Let's look at something that's actually used. So like, well, look, you have things in here like launch control. For those of you that are wondering, I've never used this software before in any kind of live environment. I have the PCM. I have this. I have a data logging software that they've sent me a data log to look at, but I haven't really used any of this. So we're just kind of looking at it together. Not for the first time. Obviously, I've looked it over, but let's see. Launch control. Traction control is actually more what I would want to look at. So in here, you got this is really cool. So this is every list of variable in the traction control section. And this is gear 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I assume you can set it up for as many gears as you want. So the way this works is this is how much slip you're allowing front to back, which is how most traction control works. I believe this, I'm not sure exactly what units these are. I'm not sure how to tell. But anyway, this is telling you the slip. So the top row here is car speed, and I'm not sure what that is. But anyway, obviously, as that goes up, you're allowed less slip. And this is per gear. So you have one for first gear, one for second gear, all that sort of stuff. And you can only allow it above a certain threshold. So that's only going to, this is, I believe these guys are from Finland. So all this is in metric and kilometers per hour and stuff like that. But you get the idea. But something more normal. Let's see. Ignition. So here's your Spark Advanced table, your Spark map. And then you can zoom around it. There are some interpolation tools. You can look at it, a few different ways. The other cool thing you can do, I don't have it set up like that right now, but once we open the data log, you'd be able to drag through the data log and live trace into this. Now, here's one thing that this is all what I would consider the calibration section. And for those of you guys that do any type of stock computer tuning or are familiar with how stock computer tuning works, this is, where you're just calibrating stuff. Now, over here, you can get up into the actual setup. Now, a lot of standalones, you can get into this stuff, but not all of this stuff. And one thing that comes to mind is Here you go. Electronic throttle body setup. There's all kinds of, you can pretty much do anything with this. So like, you know I've heard people complain on Holly that the drive-by-wire stuff, you just pick out of like an actual throttle body. It's pre-done. You can't really change much about it. So it's fine for the really common things, but it may not be as good if you want to do your own thing. So this is really what this comes down to. This system lets you do your own thing. Lets me do my own thing and help you guys do it exactly how you would want to do it. Let me look at a couple comments here. Let's see. Yeah, I have. It hasn't been back on the dyno recently. It needs to be. I'm running way behind on my GT500. Yeah, 120 is probably about right. It's well over 100. Okay, anyway, let's go back to this. So anyway, you get the rough idea of how this works. There's not a whole lot to show you here yet, but let's take a look at the data logging software. So this is the data logging software, and this is really nice. I don't know how easy that is to see on your screen, but down here at the bottom is the entire data log. So you can drag these lines to see how much or how little you want to do. Let's see. So the way I have this set up, here, we'll zoom in right here. So these white lines are RPM. And then if you highlight them, first off, this red line here in the middle, if you drag that around, that's going to show you exactly where you are in the, you know, on that parameter. So right here at this top of this gear, we're at, if you look here, we're in third gear, 7,000 RPM, 17 degrees of timing, 2129 millibar boost. Now this is a road race car that OBR sent me just to look at a log. 161 kilometers per hour and 8.5 lambda. Now, and then there's two different graphs we're looking at here. The bottom one, I just set this up real quick to show you guys, but you know, this is the real basic information: fuel, speed, boost, spark, gear, and RPM. And then up here in the same spot, you can look, okay, right at the top of this gear, we had, you know, you can kind of look. So like this green line right here is fuel pressure. It's pretty much straight through that whole watt pole, which is what we're looking at, I believe. Air temp is going down as they go faster, probably because of the speed of the car is increasing. TPS is at 72%, which is probably, I don't know why it's maxed out there, but it's maxed out. Oil temp, and then you can see, like I said, the fuel, that's fuel pressure error at the top. Anyway, so that's the deal. And then over here on the left, you can pick, these are all the different things that are being logged, and you can pick if it goes on the top log or the bottom log and how big the lines are and all that sort of stuff. And then from here, you can do live traces over your tune and see where you're at and all that. And then things, you know, hopefully to come down the road is some more advanced tools in the data logger, like histograms and things like that. One thing you can do is, I'm not 100% sure you can do it. We're looking at this right now. There is an export current view as CSV file, but it's grayed out. So I need to talk to those guys about why, because one thing you can do is take it to an external data log viewer, which a lot of people use a program called Megalog Viewer, including myself. I believe they're now the software / data logger for Big Stuff 3, Big Stuff 4, Mega Squirt, all those. So it's kind of a universal data log viewer that has histograms and scatter plots and some really nice tools. So that's definitely an option early on. Garage Junkie, no offense. What's the reason for wanting a 7.3 that doesn't handle boost well to swap over a Coyote? If you're talking stock engine versus stock engine, then I wouldn't pick the 7.3 either. It's when you start modifying it that it just offers a lot of different things. One thing that there's a lot of things you're probably not considering because you're so used to the Coyote world, which is, oh, okay, 750 at the wheels. After that, you need to use pump gas. Well, guess what? Or E85 or race gas, because you're not making more than 750. Maybe you'll tap 800 on pump gas, but not really. You know, it's a high compression engine, small displacement. Well, that's out the door now. You got a big displacement engine. You can probably make a tremendous amount of power on pump gas, and that's very attractive for some people. The other thing that's really attractive for some people is the simplicity of upgrading it versus, say, a Coyote when you're trying to go for that hot rod route, right? So consider you have, you know, a 32 Ford, which a lot of people put Coyotes in right now, and then they want to know how to make it sound like a badass vehicle. And as you know, really your only option there is to put a ghost cam on it, and they sound okay. But now, all of a sudden, we could put a 440 cubic inch engine in there with a huge camshaft, one camshaft, not four. You know, that's pretty attractive to me. And it's something different. We've been messing with small displacement overhead cam engines from Ford for a really long time now. So it's just something new. That's another nice thing about it. Red, white, and Kona blue. My thoughts on the built 7.3 that made almost 800 NA. It's awesome. You know, I'm friends with Brian now. We've been communicating quite a bit about all this stuff. He's how I actually met the guys from OBR, and it's probably helped me decide the path on our swap. So let's talk about our swap for a minute. Our swap is going to be a 2005 Mustang GT, my wind-veiled blue Mustang GT, and you know, it's seen better days. It's covered in 3 inches of dust. It's got a couple dents in there. I don't remember being there when I stored it. It's just really bad. In fact, you know, it's taking up room, so I'm technically paying to store it. And I was like, why am I even keeping this thing? Well, then the Godzilla popped up, and I said to myself, this is why I'm keeping it. It's a perfect opportunity. So what we're going to do is... you know, that thing is just a shell. When I got my 2011 Mustang GT, I sold the engine out of it. I sold everything out of it. So it's literally a shell. We welded some casters to the bottom of it just so we can roll it around, and those are broken, and it's hard to move now. And so we're going to take that car and put a whole new suspension under it. We're going to use the OBR controller, a TKO transmission, stick shift, and we're going to try to go fast with it completely stock NA. But, you know, it's going to be, this particular one is not going to be like a finely detailed make the gauges work kind of swap. This is going to be like, let's get it running kind of swap, and then we'll get more complicated as we go on. So we'll do NA, bone stock, and then camshaft. Let's talk about the camshaft in the 7.3. That's going to be probably something most people are going to want to change. The camshaft in this thing has some odd events that are related to emissions. It has an extremely wide lobe separation angle, and it's just not a great camshaft for most things. So you're gonna want one of those. So we'll do a camshaft. Hopefully an intake manifold becomes available without having to do a billet intake manifold, and try and go as fast as we possibly can on a bone stock engine beyond the cam and the intake. And then after that, we'll probably get fairly extreme with it and do a version of what Brian did with his engine, except maybe even a little bit more compression, a camshaft that's intended for naturally aspirated, and try to go really, really, really fast with a stick shift naturally aspirated setup. You obviously we've already seen Mike Washington go really fast with his 5.2 setup. So, what are we going to do with another 2 liters? I don't know. We'll see. It's obviously a little heavy, but we can make up for that. Mike, I should know that but I don't off the top of my head. I think it is like 120 pounds. It's a lot. It's a very significant difference. Serpentine, yeah. Again, we think a little bit with the blinders on, and I'm guilty of that myself in the Coyote world. But there's a lot of things you can't do in the Coyote world. And that's why, although you do have the guys running after the Coyote NA records, and you can do it. It's just very difficult and gets very expensive. So it could be a really good option for NA stuff. Yeah, Jess, it's going to be a stick. I already got the trans being put together right now. No, this is a race car. You're a street car driver. Cam, crank, and bottom end will need to be swapped for a lot more power. No, crank definitely will not need to be swapped. You obviously didn't go watch the video like I told you to. So, anyway, the cam will need to be swapped, one cam. And bottom end, which if you're really doing a serious Coyote project, you're already going to swap rods and pistons anyway. So, it's really not as big of a difference. You seem like you're against it a little bit, but that's normal. It's the same. It's like 13, 14 GT500 guys hated the new GT500, and 11 to 14 guys hated the S550, and it's hard to accept new things. So I think that's where you're at. I think it's a great deal. And if not, that just leaves one more 7.3 for us to swap into somebody else's vehicle. Carl, I think someone should make a 4-cam Godzilla, then you'd really have something. What I would like to see is somebody take a Coyote and just blow it up dimensionally to, something a lot bigger than a Coyote, just to see. I'm not that type of billionaire, though. No, definitely not an MT82. It's going to have a TKO in it. Jacob's Ride. I currently have a Coyote swapped SN95 tuned by you guys. The 7.3 has attracted me quite a bit. I think, not everybody's going to be super attracted to it. I've talked to a lot of people that I was shocked by, industry people that they're just not excited about it at all. And I don't know. I'm excited about everything. I'm excited about the Bronco. I'm excited about the new Raptor. I'm excited. I like all new stuff. Ford doesn't let me down. Everybody likes to be the hater and pick shit apart. Not me. I like to be positive. Everybody was unsure about the GT500. I was not. I knew it was going to be insanely nice. And it is. The 7.3 is a 60 minus 2, I believe, Mike. The Coyote uses both Hall and VR based on year. 18 changed. If you prefer an NA52, then we'll never be on the same page about the Godzilla. Sorry. I'm an NA guy, but it depends on what you're doing with it. Back in the mid 2000s, I was really hardcore into Pure Street in the NMRA, and our big thing was high RPM, stuff kind of like what the 5.2 is. And, that's badass, but I didn't like driving that thing on the street. We spun that thing to 10,000 RPM. So a little bit more extreme than a 5.2. But man, it just wasn't like the most fun to drive on the street, just like a 5.2 NA car. Sorry. For an all-out race car, it's awesome, whether it be drag or road race. But if you're going to drive it much, it has to have a little bit more torque for me. Which typically in the Coyote world, that's why power riders are so popular. Okay. Max boost on a stock Gen 2 Coyote block on pump. You know, the whole max boost thing is not really all that relevant. You got to talk max power because that's really what's causing the failure. You know, and you're on a Gen 2 on pump gas, you're talking, I've made more than these numbers I'm going to say, but you know, a realistic number is, you know, like on a blower car, you know, 720, 730 or lower on pump gas is probably where I'd stay. And on a turbo setup, you might be able to go a little bit higher. The difference is on the turbo setup, they usually don't RPM is good stock, and like a Whipple is going to RPM like crazy. So you're going to maybe make a little bit better peak anyway with the Whipple. But the turbo setup probably beat it down low. Nick Kaiser, just as a cool street car, 2019 GT with stage 2 Whipple cams or no cams. You know, in general, I don't really think you need cams on anything, hardly. Unless you're just like naturally aspirated. You said Whipple, though. It's just not worth it on a Coyote. I don't really see the point. I mean, we just went to 840 at 166 with stock camshafts on a 2018. So I just don't see why you need cams. Carlos, do you think an NA Yote Voodoo can run 7s in the quarter mile? Asking for a friend. I don't know, but if it can, you better go do it real quick before I come behind you and do it with a Godzilla. That'll be a little bit for that. I don't think I'm ever gonna go that crazy with it, but I've said that before. All right, guys, what other questions do we have in here? I'll take questions on just about anything at this point. I know it's a little bit early in the Godzilla game, but I kind of wanted to show you guys where my head was on the topic because... Hey, Simon, come here, buddy. Come here, buddy. Simon, come here. Simon's going to come visit real quick. Come here. Come on up here. Right, over here. Everybody say hi to Simon. SK Performance, Jeff. Love watching your tech videos. Keep up the hard work. Yeah, I'm going to try and get a lot more of those done. We just hired another person at the shop. I'm just going to sit back here a little bit, relax. We just hired another sales guy at the shop for help, so we're trying to get things into a more reasonable daily routine so I can get back into my daily routine. Revit Racing, 2-step on a 10-speed. You got a couple options. You got, well, probably your best option is the watt box. What are you doing, buddy? Yeah, that's not very comfortable for him. The watt box is probably your best bet on an 18 plus. Some people do the MSD. We've actually had some problems with that, or problems on cars that had those, and we're not sure if that's what caused it. Yeah. Let me go back. I think I missed a question. Mark, 7.3 in your Ford GT? Nah, I wouldn't let you do that. I like the 7.3, but you can't do that to your GT. You have to sell it to me for $100,000 first. Let me show you. Garage Junkie asked about the swap or the belt guide. If you go to our website, I've been working on this some. Oh, do you guys hear that? That's pretty funny. I just hit the button on here. Anyway, if you go to our website, for vehicles GT500, Shelby GT500. Been getting our website in better order. I haven't had a lot of time for this, and this is what I'm been spending some of my time on instead of videos. But we're going to try and get everything populated for all the vehicles here, everything up to date. I'm starting with GT500. I'm working my way back. You know, all our Mustang GT stuff's kind of out of date. With the Whipples, the packages are all the same, but you know, they all have 2.9 pictures, and we can upgrade them, and you can call. But you know, we don't have a whole lot of time to keep this stuff up to date. We're trying to get a little better with it. But anyway, as far as the belts go, if you go down here to belts, this is our belt guide that's really always growing. The way you read it is on the left. This only is valid with the Whipple tensioner. On the left, you'll have the pulley size, and then across the top, you'll have the belts. And then the ones that say /HD like that means that they have an HD version. If it just has the H, you know, either a black one is just that, or a green one has the HD on the end of it. And then if it says only HD, it's only available in the HD belt. The color coding stands for you're good with that belt and that pulley. And then the number, we're shooting for about 35 on the Whipple tensioner. The Whipple tensioner, as it deflects when you put the belt on, there's a gauge on it that you can read a number. So like, for instance, the reason I'm doing this is a lot of times you go, oh, for this pulley you need this belt, and that's true, you know, but you don't need just that belt. There's some flexibility with the belt. So if you're switching pulleys or switching between a few different sizes that are close, you might be able to just get one belt and not have to change the belt every time. And here's an example. So this K080680 is pretty good belt for anything from a 2.6 all the way up to a 2.9. At a 2.9, it's going to be a little tight. A 2.6, it's a hair loose, but it's still going to work. Any ones that do not have a number on them mean I have not test fitted that belt yet, and we'll update this chart as things progress. Now, this chart is going to get a little bit more complicated, or there's going to be two charts probably, because beyond this, we're going to start adding an SPE auxiliary tensioner, which goes up by the supercharger pulley, and that's going to be, I'd probably recommend that definitely for a 2.4 or lower pulley, maybe 2.5. I think it only works with a 2.5 or 2.6 and lower, but 2.5 and lower, you're going to want to use that. So now that's going to add a little bit more length to the belt because of the way it tensions. So this will have to change for that. Maybe we'll have one chart with the tensioner and one chart without it. So anyway, hopefully that made sense. Yeah, that's, like I said, that's with the Whipple tensioner. Walter, why wouldn't cams in a boosted Coyote be beneficial if you were limited by a specific blower? Yeah, I mean, if you're building a class car where the blower is limited, then cams are probably a good move. But not many people are doing that, and they're probably, if they are, they're not asking here. But in general, like, I'll give you a good example. Carlos's 2018 Mustang GT that we just set the 10R80 supercharged record with revs to 8,700 RPM and is still gaining power. So what are cams going to do for that setup? I mean, it could pick up some power, but probably not. I mean, it's still making, we haven't hit peak power. We don't want to turn it that hard. Okay, I'm tuned by you guys for my Vortec 15 Auto GT. The downshifts are slower than NA. Is that a tune thing or a mechanical thing because of the supercharger belt? Are you talking? If you're talking about the delay in how quickly it will downshift, well, really all of it's probably tune related. It shouldn't be anything with the belt. So we could probably, if you want to contact us, we can look at that. Rosario. What do you think about the 5.4 Navi heads? I mean, any of that stuff is good stuff. I mean, a lot of people use those heads on like race car builds and things like that. But, you know, if you're using those heads on a race car build, you're probably porting them anyway. So they're good heads. Any of the later modular heads are all really good heads. I mean, you really can't go wrong. 2020, Steve Gurley, 2020 F-150 5.0 for pulling a trailer blower, or do you do a blower? Yeah, I mean, it's not going to hurt anything. I mean, you're going to have more power. If anything, it might help gas mileage. I could be wrong, but it might, because you're not going to have to give it as much throttle to make, you know, the power that you need to tow. I don't know. Most of the supercharge applications that we do on F-150s are guys that are more performance minded, and they're not doing it and still using it much like a truck. So the answer to that is it should, but we don't do a lot of it. .50 gone. Hey, Rob. My name's Ken. Rob is not on here. He may be sometimes, but you should know what Rob looks like. He's Rob the Tune Maker Shoemaker. We're going to be coming out with a bunch of new shirts, and one of those will be a new shirt with Rob's face on it. On my 2020 GT500 with a 245 grip tech pulley, is it really needed for me to get a Whipple tensioner? Yes. Well, no. Nothing's needed. You didn't need the pulley either. But I recommend it. I recommend the Whipple tensioner on any pulley setup. John, did Whipple the Tremor engine? You mean the Godzilla engine in the 7.3? The 7.3? Not yet. I believe I'm getting the first one, and that's more like a prototype. It's not going to be like production, but I think they're running real behind on, not behind, but they're trying to get the 3.8 done, and they're super busy with how badass their blowers are, and, you know, I just don't have mine yet. Yeah, that's okay. 5.0 gone. All right, guys. You guys got any more questions? Anything exciting going on? Anybody got any new personal bests or? We didn't have a whole lot going on this week. It's been super. Well, it's like that down here this time of year. Rainy season. We're hoping to get one car we could talk about real quick is Austin, who works for us. He's built a super badass N8 combination. I'm not going to put out his numbers yet, but I suspect he would beat just about any blown Coyote on pump gas. He's not on pump gas, but any Coyote on pump gas, he would beat. Terry, oh, hey, Jacobs. We actually took the contest down because of the COVID thing, right when that hit, and we really only got a couple entries. I think we're just going to relaunch that when things go back to normal, and then just anybody who did enter, we'll keep those entries, and we're going to relaunch the contest. That's why we took it down off the website. Walter, whatever happened to the dyno pulls with the Billet Coyote intake? I'm not sure what you're talking about. I have a Billet Coyote intake on my car, but I'm not sure what dyno pulls you're talking about. Pedro, not yet. The tire settings setup is not in any tool that I know of currently. It will be added, but not yet. Right now we're using Forescan on that, and even Forescan doesn't support it exactly right. You have to go in and change a couple numbers. It's not hard. A lot of people do it, but you don't just open it and say change tire size or anything like that. It's a little bit more complicated. John Nazer, more crackle and pops on D-Cell. I mean, we offer a burble tune, which is what that is, crackle and pop tune. Mustang lifestyle got that going a little bit for us. But you get what you get with that, you know. So like we'll try and get it to pop and crack as much as you can, but it kind of changes based on what kind of, you know, exhaust you have and a lot of other things and ambient temperatures and all those sorts of things. So, you know, we're not going to chase it. We'll try our best to make it sound good. The Plasma Man intake, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Did I say I was doing a back-to-back test on that? I don't think so. I do have 2 Plasma Man intakes, a short runner and a long runner, but the long runner is going to be better for everybody, I think. Yeah, Mark, I can't wait. Hopefully, it's hard for me to remember that it's cooling off up there. It's still super hot. Garage Junkie, the VMP pulley question. It depends. You gotta. It depends on what blower you're talking about, really. Boosted F-150. What do you? The current max horsepower and torque that any built 10R80 should stop at for decent longevity on an F-150. I mean, an F-150, it's probably going to be a little bit lower because of the weight as opposed to a Mustang. So it's just, you know, 800, probably maybe even lower for longevity. .50 gone, crackle and pop on the 2020 GT500s. Actually, I tried to mess with that similar to a way that the GTs work to crack and pop like that, the burble. I couldn't get it to work. We can try again. So just give us some time. I'm sure we'll figure it out. No, Walter. We haven't done any comparisons like that. Most people aren't going to run something like the Plasma Man NA, and most people aren't going to run a ported 18 on a blower, or at least I wouldn't. That's kind of risky because the intake already is a little weak and then you're grinding on it. The Plasma Man, I think a more valid test, if you want to see the Plasma Man stacked up, would be the Plasma Man against the other billet manifolds on the market. The thing about the billet manifolds is they're just as much about strength as they are about power. Nice, Ken. Okay, can I get a burble tune for your 15 GT? Yep. Someone's saying, is there a way in the tune to stop the exhaust valves from opening automatically when watt on the GT500? Yeah, I mean, it's in there. I haven't tried. If anything, I've tried to open them sooner because the problem is you build more power, and if you try to keep them in one of the closed positions and it can't stay in that closed position, then that's when you get the errors. So trying to run them not all the way open at big power, I understand why you want to do that for noise problems at the track, but I don't know if that's really going to work for you. We can try it, though. Brian, Prestige Carpentry, a guy asking about clutches for 10R60. For those of you guys who don't know what a 10R60 is, that's the smaller version of the 10R80 in the Explorer and probably in the new Bronco, and I assume that's what's in the Ranger. Rare Fab is working on a new clutch setup on that, on Brian's vehicle. No, not really, Brian. I mean, we're looking at, they've had the transmission for a little bit. They might be wrapping up the R&D for it. Then they're shipping us back that transmission with the stock parts back. Once we get that back, we're about a month or two out from clutches, and we haven't gotten that back. So right now, I'd say end of November, December at the earliest. So we'll try to stay on top of those guys. Who'd you rescue, Northern Rider? John, tuning motorcycles and power sports. Yes, we do. I've done all that. Our biggest issue is space. if we had more space, then Garage Junkie, I'm not sure on an Odin blower. We've only tuned a few of those. I'm not sure on pulley sizes on those. I'm more familiar with the Whipples. 59 this week. Uh-oh, Mark. You're going 30s. Boosted F-150. I mean, even with the currently available parts, which is just really clutches on an F-150, I think if you're pushing much over 900 horsepower on a regular basis, you're going to burn it up. Not right away, you know, but you're going to need often rebuilds, I guess. Mark, can you go as fast with VP 109? MS 109, yeah, probably pretty close. That's my next favorite fuel, or that's my favorite E85 replacement, I guess I would say. So yeah, that's an option. I thought about doing that on my car. You can either go full MS 109 or even a 50-50 mix. 50-50 mix with E85 would put you like somewhere around like E55 or something like that. 5.0 gone. The tensioner I recommend for really any aftermarket pulley. What I was mentioning for recommending on the smaller pulleys is an auxiliary idler. If you guys want to know more about that, I can go find a picture real quick. I have to go look for it though. A 305 Grip Tech. I'm not sure why you would run that. The stock pulley is not much bigger than that. If you're talking about another year, then that type of device is a little bit irrelevant as far as the tensioner. I mean, all the stock tensioners are not usually that great, so. Walter, it depends on what kind of power you're making right now. Probably not. Most people will switch to the billet intake manifolds for strength, not power. You can make more power with them, but it's more about when you're running real high boost. Revit Racing, the MMR sheet metal intake with the Whipple throttle body. Very cool. Mark, if you're asking me why people don't run MS 109, is because of money. Come on. You seem cheap. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, you're talking way more money to run MS 109. You know, most people just want to run the same fuel all the time in these types of vehicles. But if you want to run MS 109, we can do a tune for that. That's for sure. And we obviously won't have any kind of issues with running low on the fuel system at that point. Revit Ignite fuel is pretty cool. I use Ignite, but I'm going to start using 1-ethanol more probably, or maybe VP. Brian, I bought a 2020 GT. How do I go about a PBD tuner or a package deal from you guys? If you're not good with technology, then I suggest calling us, which is 561-571-1173. We're open 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. If you do have trouble getting through on the phones, which, we're growing. We just hired another person to answer the phones. 3 people now answering the phones, but they're still very busy. If you're having trouble getting through, you can also message us on Facebook. And if you want to talk on the phone, just message us your phone number. And then when one of our people become available, they'll call you so you don't have to sit on hold. Or call our phone number and leave a message like normal people, but nobody wants to do that anymore. Limitations on 1050X. Well, RPM is a factor because as RPM goes up, there's less time to, fire the injector. open time. So the higher the RPM, the less horsepower it's going to support. Like, for instance, these are just totally made up numbers, but if it supports 1,000 at 7,000 RPM, if you spin it to 8,500, you're only going to support 9 something up there. So a 1050X on a high RPM engine is going to give out under 1,000 horsepower usually, depending on fuel pressure. So if you're shooting for 1,000, I recommend 1,300s. If you're shooting for under 1,000, in most cases, 1050Xs usually will get you by. No issues with the stock tensioner, just keeping the belts, boost. You're not gonna have any problems unless you consider slow being a problem. Then you'll have a problem because you're gonna have belt slip. Not always, but it definitely works better with the Whipple tensioner. I'd put the stock pulley back. His stock pulley broke? That's interesting. I don't really want to encourage anybody not to buy a certain brand pulley, but in the past, I've never used Grip Tech pulleys because every time I use them, I only use them in cases where a regular pulley wouldn't work. And they definitely, people want to argue this, but they definitely cause more belt wear. That's why I don't really sell them. I use SPE pulleys on our setups, and we've had 0 problems with those, and much less belt wear. I don't really love the surfacing on the Grip Tech pulleys. So to just run one at that size when you don't really need the belt grip, then you're just going to go through belts quicker, I think. The lid allowing more air movement. No, it's nowhere in the ballpark of the Roush. Please don't make me delete you by making that comparison. Jesus, that is the worst setup. We're making 1,100 horsepower on a stock blower with a stock intercooler, and it's getting hot, but it's not getting that hot. You can't make 800 with the Roush 2650. It's not even close. It's not even like, I'm just going to ignore that you said that. Max horsepower that it can support. Sorry, that question got me all mixed up. Okay, what's the max horsepower ID 1050X can handle on the E85 Gen 2 Yote? Again, I said it earlier, it depends on RPM. Typical Gen 2 Yotes are spinning 8,000. I wouldn't really push them much past 950. You can get by with more high fuel pressure with a really good fuel pump, but that's where you really need to start thinking about 1300s. Straight sketchy, thanks, appreciate it. Brian, yeah, Lucas Oil Octane Booster is really actually pretty good. Not many people use it. It has a little less additive in it than the other Octane boosters, but you can pretty much just run 2 bottles of the Lucas to equal 1 bottle of like Boostane or VP. And even at 2 bottles of the Lucas, I think it's still cheaper. You definitely don't have. I think you'll have good results either way. I actually have a bunch of Lucas products at the shop that they sent me to test, and one of those is Octane Booster. So we'll be doing that soon. It's just nice to know how good that stuff's going to work for, in a pinch. That's why I liked VP. Boostane, some people will argue that it's, better than VP, which it may be, but the nice thing about VP is it's available at AutoZone. So when you need it in a pinch, which a lot of times you do with Octane Boost, you can go up to the store and get it and not have to worry about ordering it. Torco, Mark. Yeah, I've used Torco in the past. Torco's been the hardest on plugs for me. And VP can be a little tough sometimes. And I've heard that Boostane is the nicest on plugs, and whatever it's doing to the plugs, I assume it's doing to the valves and everything else. So, you know, I've taken that into account. Torco's lowest on my list. Serpent Stang, you think a larger intercooler tank will be available soon for? Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you saw, but we're selling the trunk tank. I just think the trunk tank's better. VMP actually, I think, is trying to sell. I think it's intended for their Odin supercharger, but it looks like it'll fit on a GT500. It's a larger tank that goes kind of where the factory GT500 tank is. It just doesn't seem like it adds enough volume for me. But if you really don't want to do a trunk tank, that's probably your only option. I don't even know that it fits. I just saw somebody linked me to a video that they were putting it in there and that it could fit and all that. But I don't know if they're offering it as a product or not. Al-Fudari. I bought a S550 that is powered by a Paxton 2200, and it was from California. The car is now in Colorado, and it's also tuned by you guys. Should I retune it because of the significant altitude change? No, you shouldn't need to. You're more than welcome to do a log and send it in. We'll do a safety check for you, but when you buy a vehicle that we've tuned, we definitely, you know, tuning support doesn't follow. We'll be more than happy to pick up tuning on it if you'd like. But if you just want to do a data log, I don't think we charge for that, just to review it, make sure it's safe. But with a mass air vehicle like a Mustang GT is, and also on, you know, OEM style matte-based cars also, they'll account for altitude. The mass air meter is measuring the mass of the air. So obviously the air gets less dense at altitude, and it knows that. Saline 85 111. Is there a clear winner to what block is best to use to start off on a Coyote build, Gen 1, 2, or 3? I don't know. I mean, I'm not really the best guy to ask that, to be honest with you. A lot of those questions, I mean, I get these questions. This is a good thing to bring up, really, because I get a lot of these questions. What block to use, what bearings to use, what rod bolts to use. And my answer is always the same thing. Ask your engine builder, and if they can't give you an answer you're happy with, you probably picked the wrong engine builder, because I don't build engines. I think I'm capable of building engines, but I only have so much time in the day, and I'm not a do it all kind of guy. I like to be an expert at a few things, rather than just doing everything. And there's a lot to be said about those guys that do it all. You know, like one of my racing heroes, Billy Glidden, he's kind of known for that. Him and his wife do like everything on their car, 100% themselves, everything. But that's just not the kind of guy I am. So as far as like engine parts, whoever's going to do the build, I want them to pick the parts out. Just like if you can ask me like a mixture of parts with the engine being like one part, like which engine with this blower and that, and you know, my advice should be very useful to you because I am the one that's going to try and make it run properly. And the same thing should happen with your engine builder. Their advice should be what you care about, not mine, when it comes to the engine. And you know, in general, I really support buying long blocks from engine builders, not short blocks, because the minute you start bolting heads on the block and all that, there's a huge opportunity for you to mess it up. And that's why engine builders, when you have a problem with an engine like that, you know, it's like, oh, well, you know, that's the first question they ask. So if you're really serious and you want to, you know, make sure you don't have any issues, why not ask them, you know, give them the end goal, right? What do you want to do with it? I want to make this much power. I want to run this much fuel. And here's my expectations. And then let them decide on the build. And when it doesn't do what you ask them to do, then you have a legitimate case to ask them at least. And you know where you wound up, even if it's not anybody's fault. You know how many times I've seen a guy put together an engine with these heads and this cam and this short block, and the thing gets together 4 times before it's right. You know, and everybody's pointing fingers, and the guy spent 2 or 3 times as much as he should have if he just would have went to one guy. You know, so that's my short long answer on engine parts. Doug, it's okay to do Torco. It's just not. It's just not my favorite. I don't see it as much as I used to either. Serpent's tank. Yeah, it's not even really like a tank. It's if you look at how it's plumbed, you know, it's just really like an it's like an expansion tank. It's not really meant for any volume whatsoever, really. Yep, Mark got our new tank, which he's going to get in soon. We're going to have a full kit out for the ice tank, which should work on any S550. It will be pushed towards the GT500, but I suppose it will work on anything. The 7.3 Godzilla motor. We talked about that a little bit earlier. I mean, I'm very much behind it. I think the engineering side on Ford really set the table for a performer for us. There's a lot of little hidden gems there. If you haven't already watched it, I recommend going to Revan Evan Smith's channel on YouTube and really researching all the 7.3 stuff that's on there with Brian Wolf. Brian Wolf goes through every little bit of that engine. Brian is a former Ford Racing, head of Ford Racing, former head of global engine development for Ford. He's a very big part of the 7.3 coming to market. And if you want to find out any information on the 7.3, I would listen to Brian Wolf. Yes, Eric. I just answered your question, even though I didn't see the question until after I answered it. It should work on anything, really. I'm mostly going to design it on the GT500 because it probably has more gotchas as far as hose routing than any normal S550. So if it fits on a Mustang GT or a GT500, it should fit on Mustang GT. Gear ratio for a twin turbo Mustang, a 355 in the car now, 10 speed, 970, 17-inch wheels. Well, that's going to depend because on a 10-speed car, you also have the option to leave in second gear. On a first gear leave on a 10-speed car, 355 is definitely too much. On any power adder, really, probably. Unless you're going to leave in second. We leave in second gear on the Whipple cars with a 315. With the turbo car, you're probably going to want a little bit more gear, depending on how you're setting it up and trans brake and converter and all those sorts of things. But I think you wouldn't be really going wrong if you put a 315 in the car. Boosted F-150, 18 Coyotes. What boost do I feel the compression needs to be lowered for a street car on E85? It doesn't. Not on E85. The only reason to lower compression would be is if you wanted to run it on pump gas. You know, and I've always been a compression guy because that's what we had to do to make power. One of the things that we could do to make power. But time gives you perspective. And now that we've got the GT500 at 9.5 to 1 and making the power that it's making, and I can make close to 900 horsepower on pump gas, it's like, maybe I don't want all that compression. So, you know, if you're building from scratch, compression will help with a lot of things. But, you know, being a little conservative on compression could yield some great benefits, which is that, you know, if you want to do decent on pump gas, you can. Like I would have never have guessed that my GT500 would lay down 1,100 ruble horsepower with that blower at 9.5 to 1 compression, but it did. Now, what would it do at 11 or 12 to 1? I don't know. I'm sure we'll find out. Not mine, maybe, but somebody will do it. Ben, 3.8 Whipple, not yet. It's too far out. I mean, there's not a whole lot to talk about. The 3.8 Whipple basically is a 3.0 Whipple that's 0.8 larger, and it's made larger by a larger diameter rotors, not longer. Like in the past, you know, if you've looked at like the 4.5 and the 4-liter and all that generation of blowers, like on the GT500, for example, they got longer and longer, and that's just not the best way to do it. Now that Whipple does so much of their engineering and they build their rotors in house, they've been able to do some tremendous R&D on rotor design, and that's where all these huge advancements have come with the Whipple. And basically, you know, so if a 3-liter rotor is this big, then the 3/8's that big, but everything else is the same. So it should really do very well. Obviously, we plan on using it as soon as it's out. Terry, no, it just depends. I think your car, yours is made like 900 to 1,000, I think, recently. So you're up there in power. Your car, we've done well at that power level with a first gear leave. It just really depends, but it's an easy switch, so we can just give you a tune with either one. And certainly on a marginal track, I think second gear leave would be helpful for you. But at 1,000 or just under, you might be better off with first gear leave. Again, just have to play with it. Eric, Power Dome. Yeah, I don't know. No, I haven't named it. I just haven't really been inspired just yet. So I'm hoping that comes. Power Dome. I don't hate Power Dome. I want it to have a cool name, but I don't want it to be cheesy. But sometimes cheesy names are okay. All right, guys. Got any more questions? Probably going to stay on another 10, 15 minutes at the most. I didn't even get to eat my dinner. I was running so far behind today that I turned around and it was 5 minutes till 8, so I hopped on here with you guys. I got McDonald's, but I didn't eat it. It's over there. I'm sure that's going to taste delicious. We could adjust the gearing right now. That's not in the transmission tune. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly, I love the nature of the car as it sits with the 373, but at the power levels we're at, it's certainly getting to be a bit much. So, I mean, I'm planning on leaving mine the way it is right now, but probably because I don't want to mess with it. Walter, new PBD shirts coming out. Yeah, what we're going to do is, I'm not sure of the quality, but Teespring makes it very easy for us to offer a large variety of shirts because they like print to order, and I can sell them directly through YouTube here. So I just set that up, and we're going to do a few shirts through them, but I'm probably not going to advertise those much. I ordered one of each for myself to make sure that I would wear them. I'm not going to sell you guys something I wouldn't wear. So if that works out and those shirts are nice, then we're going to offer a lot of different ones via Teespring. And then if apparel gets more and more popular, you know, I love doing that stuff. I have a little bit of a background in like graphic arts and things like that, and video. So I enjoy it. And I would love to have like a whole line of t-shirts and all kinds of stuff. But I don't want to do it the traditional way of going out and ordering all this stuff right off the bat. So we'll do the Teespring thing for now. Eric, what's for lunch tomorrow? I don't know. We got a lot of lunch to buy. We got a bunch of tips at the last live feed we got to burn through. I don't know. What's today? Monday? Probably Chick-fil-A. We'll probably have Chick-fil-A. We do that at least once a week. We go buy like 100, 200, or a couple hundred nuggets. Boosted F-150, I appreciate it. He said thanks for the live feed and the tech. Brian, okay, so best diameter, it's really hard to go too big on a header. I mean, you'll get a lot of people argue with you on that. For absolutely no worries whatsoever, 1 7/8 is definitely the way to go for most people. I have 2-inch headers on my GT500, and I would do 2-inch headers on anything that you're shooting for that large power. But 1 7/8 is probably fine also. As far as catalytic converters, it's illegal to remove your catalytic converter, so I don't recommend removing those if you drive your car on the street. But if you want max performance and it's a track car, I would definitely get rid of them. Ivan, just wanted to say hi. I love your content. Keep up the good work in Houston. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I hope to be making, a trip out to Texas here real soon. I would have loved to do it this year if things weren't so crazy with the world. But, I definitely want to come out there. Got to visit all my boys up in Dallas, Paramount Speed, come down to Houston. I'd love to come out there, bring my car, spend a week, do some racing with you guys. But we'll see when that happens. Matt, it's really hard to say. I don't want to give pricing because we don't really know. The box I'm using on the OBR deal is expensive. I think on the website it retails for $3,000, and then the harness is probably $1,000 plus. But that's not what you're going to need. It's going to be significantly cheaper than that. I'd like to. This is totally made up, so saying that multiple times before I say this price, but I would love to keep the harness and computer under $2,500, maybe under $2,000. But it just really depends on where we wind up and what kind of hardware we're going to need. Low to high cat deletes are actually illegal in every state. They just may not enforce it or test it, but it's a federal law. Eric, yes, we are going to FL2K. I am piloting Carlos Vera's 2018 Mustang GT with the Whipple, and I'm also bringing my GT500. I don't know. There's really not a good class for that, but I'd just like to make some good hits in it. Do I know the length of the 7.3 from the back to the front to the back? No, I don't. But that information, if you go over here, I'll show you real quick. Revan Evans page. You go to videos. And then you could pretty much, I don't know how far back it goes. Looks like right here, 7 months ago, January 21st.
Probably wondering, what makes these chips taste so...
Sorry. So here they go through Brian's project, what he's planning on doing with it. I believe this one is just a very wide overview, and then as you progress through them, this is probably it right here. No, I'm not sure. That's why we're not doing it on here. If you go through all those videos, they put it next to a couple different engines, give you dimensions, where they change, all that stuff. Kimbo Slice, hey, thanks for the tip. I appreciate it. I'll get to your question first since you tipped me. Nah, I guess that's how it works, right? I don't know. You know anything about the 3-valve Coyote swap? I have a Boss 302 for my 05 GT. Yes. Now, it depends on what you want to do with that on the 3-valve. If you just wanted to put it in and get it to run, that's pretty simple. To get it all integrated into the car and work the gauges, there are some people that have done that. I know Lido, who's a well-known 3-valve tuner from Venezuela. He's done that on a couple cars because I actually helped him tune one of them. He did all the wiring to get the gauges to work, but it was quite a lot of work. We're hoping to eventually have a swap that will run the gauges and everything. But if you don't want the gauges to run, then there's quite a few options there. I mean, you can use the Ford control pack or any of the standalones. Let me work my way back up here. Boosted F-150. Thoughts on the 3.1 TVS and educated guess based on your experience. How do you think? I mean, it remains to be seen. I mean, obviously, I do a lot of work with the TVS stuff. The GT500 is the 2650. I don't know. I mean, maybe if they would have came out with that a year ago, but Whipple's just seems to always stay one step ahead of the game. Carlos's car on a very large pulley with his Whipple made unbelievable power. I just do not see a TVS hanging with that. So I think it'll be good. You know, I mean, theoretically, I don't think they'd be making it if it couldn't make more than 2650 because they're not in the numbers game. They're a huge company that, you know, they have to feel that it's useful. But I still don't think it's going to hang with the Whipple. I'm Team Whipple though, so pretty biased. Slow GT. I have an automatic transmission 5.0. Is it possible to change the gears to 373 without changing the differential? That's a good question. I don't think you can with the with that style 8.8. I think you have to go now. It's really not a bad idea to do it though. Just to change the whole pumpkin because the automatic has the aluminum one and the manual one has an iron center section, which is going to be stronger. Mark, ET on your Cook's headers? Yeah, I think so. My car seems to be a good... Well, I mean, we can use your car as an example. I don't remember what it just dynoed, but it dynoed a little bit lower than mine on the same power. I'd say there's a good 30 or 40 horsepower you're giving up right now. It was I tested it on our YouTube channel. I think it was 15 or 20 with a stock pulley, but as things go up, you know, as boost goes up, everything the gains will go up. Walter, 12-1, 85 D1X, Pro Charger 1100 wheel horsepower, running brisk RR12s. No, you're not really ever gonna gain by going to a colder plug. If you gain by going to a colder plug, then there's that's bad because that means things were not very happy to begin with. The best way to look at it on those plugs, it's a little hard to read plugs on E85, but on those brisks, especially if they're getting like green straps on them and stuff like that, that usually means they're getting too hot. You only really need to change them if they're getting too hot. The nice thing about the brisk plugs is if they get too hot, they usually don't cause any damage like a typical platinum or iridium plug. The silver plugs will melt. And that sounds bad, but it's a good thing. Just the electrode, the center electrode melts, and that cylinder will start to misfire, but you won't crack it won't get so hot. It melts before it gets too hot to cause further damage, I guess. It's like a wick, safety wick. DS. Pleasure seeing you live, boss. What's up? Jacob's Ride. Portage CJ and PMAS be much of a benefit on my car. 95 Mustang Gen 1 truck engine. 2018 intake L&M intake only. I didn't see where you I don't know if I'm seeing what cold air is on it now to give you the answer on the PMAS. PMAS is a nice size. Intake, 18 versus CJ, that argument's going to go on forever. It seems like the 18 intake is so close that it's the same, when you're talking about the compression game, it's like, it's going to help, but unless you really need it, are you racing people? Are you going for ET records? Does that stuff matter to you? Then maybe the CJ is a good plan. But I don't think it's going to be like life-changing differences in how the car feels or the truck or it's a car, right? Yeah, 95 Mustang. It's not going to make a big change in how it feels. It'd probably go a little quicker, but unless you're racing, I don't know if it's worth it if you've already got it. Kimbo, the Ford Performance Control Pack. I don't know what I need to get a 6060 behind the Coyote in my 05 GT. It pretty much will bolt right up as far as the transmission. The 6060, that's out of a GT500. So you should be able to use. It shouldn't be that hard at all. I mean, it should just really go right in. TR6060 swap is popular in a Coyote, so you pretty much would just need the same parts that like an 11 to 14 Coyote car would be using. Coyote Red, a SCT versus Engage. We're pretty much fully invested in the Engage at this point. The SCT is great, especially it's not as big of a difference to me on older stuff. It's become a more important as things progress. Like, for instance, I don't even think SCT has support for the GT500 yet. And a lot of this, again, just keeps coming back to people behind the curtain, the people behind the companies. And, in this case, it's HP Tuner's software is why, even though the Engage hardware is great, and that's another thing, so you got the hardware is the Engage, and that's made by eMotion, and that's a guy and his wife in Indiana, I believe. It's not some big, huge corporation. So when I have an issue, I can call the owner and get it addressed. And the same thing holds true with the software we use for that, which is HP Tuners. I don't know the owner there, so it's a little different, but I do know the guy who handles all the Ford stuff, Eric Brooks, and who happens to be a friend of mine at the same time. And, we've come up through the tuning ranks together, and we've worked together for a really long time. And, again, that's how I make almost all my decisions, is the people. Matt Jones. All right. He talked to Team Z about the K-Member. I'm curious to hear what they had to say about that. One thing, some more, I don't know how many people are left here that are interested in the Godzilla swap. But one thing I think I did forget to mention is the Godzilla swap is not a direct swap, physically a direct swap for a 6.2. So you take an F-150 6.2 or a Raptor, and the motor mounts are in the same spot, and the exhaust, if you have stock manifolds, the exhaust will hook up and the motor mounts will bolt right on. So that's really important news for anybody looking to swap the new truck engine into an older truck. DS 15 Mustang Roush 2.3 Roush, 75 millimeter pulley, DW 400 pump, 56 pound injector, 660 wheel, 98 octane. Would putting catless headers more or less require me to have better fuel system, or can I just bolt them right on? No, you should be able to just bolt those right on. I don't think you're in the danger of being out of anything by making more power. And in the case like headers, I mean, a lot of the gains on headers comes from efficiency, and I mean, you might burn a little bit more fuel with that, but your injectors are plenty big enough. Steve Hanna, just rebuilt my 02 Lightning engine. I used the 09 GT500 piston and connecting rods. I am buying a Whipple supercharger. Will the 09 GT500 connecting rod hold up to the boost? Yeah, I mean, those engines were okay. They're not, if you're going to do like, I don't know, 600-700 horsepower should be plenty fine on those rods, maybe 800. Tune revision. Yeah, I think you definitely need a tune revision for that. Well, I mean, if you just did rods and pistons, no. But if you said a Whipple supercharger, then yes. Honestly, I love Coyotes, or not Coyote stock, factory stock, because that's how I started in this. That's not true. My first NMRA race was related around my 2-valve car, which was not ever a factory stock car. That was more of like a internet world record car before Facebook was very popular, and about going. I went to Bowling Green. Crap. What year was that? 2003, I think, was my very first NMRA race, and I brought my 2000 Mustang there to try and run my first 11-second NA pass, and I did. Then after that, one of my original business partners bought a competitive factory stock car, and that's pretty much how we got started in heads-up racing, and spent a long time at the NMRA. Learned a lot. You know, a lot of people can bag on the NMRA or any racing series and all that, but I was talking to Jay Meager about this from Real Street. And, you know, if it wasn't for the NMRA, we wouldn't be where we are today. That's how we got into this business and hooked into this business. Eric, who's Neo? Am I missing something? I don't see anybody named Neo. Steve, yeah, 600, you should be fine. Which, you know, out of Lightning, a 600 horsepower Lightning is definitely getting it done. So, all right, guys, we're rolling up on the 2-hour deal here, so I'm going to call it good there. You got a couple more minutes. If you guys got any more questions. Why don't you get a couple people in the Bahamas that need tunes, and I'll come over there. I've been over there 4 or 5 times to tune. Matthew Wells is the main guy that I dealt with over there. He's a good guy. Trying to do it remotely, though, would be difficult on a vehicle like that. But I might be willing to come over there. All right, guys. Let's see. Rudy, what's it going to take to hit 8s in the 2020 GT500? Oh, yeah, I said we'd talk about that real quick. All right, well, based on everything I'm seeing, well, the number one problem is first gear. Once we shit. I got to get a new setup here, guys. Sorry. My battery lasts almost exactly 2 hours, so let me replace it. I tried to look for the power supply 5 minutes before I went live. That was a great plan. Almost done. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Shit. Helps if you don't put the battery in upside down. All right, there we go. My bad. Coyote Red, thanks. Maybe I'll be able to buy a power supply for my camera now. All right, sorry about that. I forgot what I was doing. Okay, the 8-second pass on GT500. Based on everything I'm seeing, I think it's definitely possible, especially once we get past first gear. But to do it at 100% full weight, I think it's going to be tough. You know, I think it's possible. I think it would take very good weather. It would take every bolt-on possible. I think my personal car has a good shot at it. You know, I'm a good 250, 300 pounds lighter, but, you know, that I went about that a fairly expensive way. There's different ways to go about it. I didn't want to ruin any of the features of the vehicle. Obviously, one of the biggest weight penalties on the vehicle are the brakes. One front brake rotor weighs 46 pounds, plus the caliper, and the rears are not light either. So I went with carbon ceramic brakes, but those are incredibly expensive. Coyote Red, thank you for the tip, NDS, if I didn't say thank you. You know, I did the brake rotors. I did the seats, which are another very expensive modification, the carbon fiber seats. But that saved probably like 55, 60 pounds. Rear seat delete, that's not too expensive from CM Components. And the carbon hood, which for a carbon hood really isn't too crazy. That's only 20 pounds. The wheels, which most people are already doing, you know, save another, you know, over stock, probably 50 pounds, something like that. So, you know, my car, I feel like I can get there when we figure out first gear, or maybe even not when we figure out first gear, just kind of hacking my way around it. But I don't think it's going to be something you see on a regular basis. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. Straight sketchy. Thanks. Yeah, we are doing it once a week. We're doing it Mondays at 8 o'clock. You know, and if we grow this, we might do it more often. YouTube allows like memberships through here, so maybe we do it once a week for everybody and then once a week for members only, where we can get a little bit more in detail with questions and spend some more time on that sort of stuff. But Revit Racing blackout, what does that mean? All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. We're just over 2 hours here. Appreciate everybody coming and hanging out. I'm trying to have a little bit more live action. I know this one was just more like tech info. I didn't really have much video prepared for you guys. We'll try and have some cool videos to watch. Make sure you guys comment on this video. If you're watching it after the live feed, please comment and let us know you know, what types of questions you want us to talk about, what topics you want to talk about. Make sure you're here next week and get here early so we can all yeah, I know we got 47 likes. Why isn't anybody hitting the like button? I don't know. Anyway. Oh, the camera. Yeah, the camera cut out when that was my fault. That wasn't a blackout. That was a dummy with a dead battery. All right, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Mondays at 8 o'clock. Stay tuned to our Facebook and my own personal Facebook, our Instagram for any kind of updates. I may push it back to 8:30, so keep an eye out for that, and we'll see you on the next one.